In this video, we're going to talk about how much of a home you can afford based on your salary or your household income. I actually have 3 examples of salary ranges. Somebody making $50,000 a year, somebody making $75,000 a year, and somebody making $150,000 a year. How much can they afford? Just a few years ago, mortgages were low and pricing a home or getting a home was a lot easier. Today, the interest rates are at 8% or they've dropped lower than 8%. They used to be 2.5%. So you are easily able to get a mortgage compared to today's rates. In other words, if you bought a home 4 years ago at 2.5%, your mortgage would have been a lot lower if you bought the same house today at $400,000 with a higher interest rate. So your mortgage payments would be higher. By the same token, if you are renting, the rental rates have also gone up. In fact, they've gone up quite high, just like home prices have gone up. The average rents right now, US, is about $1,927 per month. Back in 2019, it was $1,625. So the rents have gone up 18% in just the last 5 years. Astonishing. Just like when you buy a house, you have to get qualified. When you rent, a lot of the landlords require that you have some proof that you have the money to pay the rent, and they have a qualification guideline. Renters, landlords would like you to pay only 30% or less of your gross monthly salary. Let me explain. Let's say you're making $50,000 per year, which comes out to $41.66 per month. And if the landlords want you to pay only 30%, that's just a guideline, then your rent that you can afford according to your salary is $12.50 per month, which is, compared to the medium rents, quite low. You may not get much for $12.50 a month these days. Of course, that's just a guideline. Most renters today pay higher than 30% guideline because the rents are so high and the affordability is so expensive today. At the same token, if you were making $75,000 per year, which is $62.50 per month, you could afford a rent of approximately $1,875 per month. And if you're making $150,000 per year, your monthly salary is $12,500 per year, and 30% of that towards rent would be $37.50 per month. Of course, $37.50 per month, you would get a lot better house or a townhouse or a location than you would get at $12.50 per month. As I mentioned to you, this is just a guideline. And for you to rent a property, the landlords may require, as I mentioned earlier, proof of funds. So to show the proof of funds, you have to show them pay stubs or tax records or your monthly pay stubs for the last 6 months. And then they'll decide based on your income, either yours individually, or if you're buying together as a family or as a wife and husband, then they would look at the household income to qualify for the type of rent that you want. And one of the reasons the 30% guideline does not work anymore is because everything else has gone up, including your rent. So your salary has not gone up as fast as the rents have gone up. Car payments, your credit card bills, your utility bills, your medical bills, all those have gone up quite high, yet your salary is still chasing that expenses. So that's why these guidelines don't work, but it's a guideline for you to keep in check. The other dilemma with the guidelines of 1927 in general is that a lot of states, a lot of cities, the rents have gone up, but not just gone up, they've gone up significantly. Let's look at this chart. Mississippi State, the year-over-year rent has gone up 13.93%. Michigan, where the median rent is $1,500, the rent has gone up 13.89%. New Hampshire, where the median rent, that means there are rents that are $3,000, $4,000, and there are rents that are $1,000 a month, which is probably 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. But the median rent in New Hampshire is $2,104, and the rents from last year to this year over year, has gone up 13%. And I'm sure all these increases does not reflect the income that your income has gone up. In fact, there's a huge disparity between the guidelines of renting and actually renting. If you look over here in Miami, Florida, the median household income is only $39,000, and the rent to income ratio, which I mentioned 30% is a guideline, is actually 49.9%. That's a 50%. That means if you're living in Florida, on average, you're paying half of your income on rent. In Santa Ana, California, which is near Anaheim Hills, where I'm from, the median household income is $66,000. That is the combined household income, not individual salary. And the rent is approximately $2,082, the weighted rent. And the rental income ratio is 37%. If you look at Los Angeles, the median income is $62,000 and the rental income is about 36.4%. But one thing is for sure, if you can rent something within 30% of your salary or your household income, then you are living more comfortably, You may have to cut back on other things, your car payments, your credit card payments, your entertainment, and you may have a better lifestyle, and you may have extra money to spend on other things rather than spending on rent. So if you can squeeze into 30%, that's a great thing to do if you can. It's just a guideline. By the way, my name is Mike Patel from Anaheim Hills, California. And if you can subscribe to my channel and also make comments as we go along, I have a lot of great information as we're going to talk about housing right now and the affordability. I would really appreciate it. So please subscribe. So let's talk about the housing affordability. Just like rent, there was a guideline. When it comes to buying a house, there are two rules to follow. The first rule, and this is just a guideline, is the 28-36 rule. Let's look at what 28-36 rule is. The 28% rule is a rule where the lenders require, or the guideline is that no more than 28% of your gross income should go towards your home mortgage payments. So in other words, when you include your PITI, your principal, your interest, your property taxes, and your insurance, that should not exceed your monthly gross income. Let me give you an example. So let's say you're making a salary of $75,000, which is $62.50 per month. So if you multiply that by the 28%, it gives you $17.50 per month. So what the lenders would like, or what the guideline says, is that when you buy a house, depending on how much down payment you put, your mortgage payment gross based on your gross income should not exceed $17.50 per month. If you are making $150,000 per year, which is $12,500 per month, and if you take 28% of that, it comes out to $3,500 per month. So your payments should not exceed $3,500 per month. That's the 28% rule. And now going to the 36% rule, what is that guideline, or what is that rule? Well, the 36% guideline is similar to the 28% guideline. What they recommend, the lenders recommend, is that when you add your auto payments a month, if you have credit cards payments a month, if you have student loans pay per month, then if you combine your housing payment, hopefully it's 28%, and all these other payments, the total debts that you owe every month should not exceed 36%. So if you have car payments, credit card payments, all that comes out to about 8%. If you add that to 28%, it comes out to about 36%. So that's a basic 28-36 rule. One thing you have to keep in mind is even though the lender may approve you based on your 36% or 32% income, that does not reflect all the payments that you might have. You might have other payments. You may be taking care of your parents. They may be elderly. You may be paying for their medical bills. You have utility bills. You have HOA bills, and you have groceries. So all that, after 36%, you still have those payments to make. So just because you are qualified to get a loan at 36% or less doesn't mean that you don't have additional payments. You still have a lot of other payments that you have to account for. So yes, buying a house is not very easy. It is challenging, but to feel comfortable and not live and not work to pay your mortgage payments, you have to look at all your payments and decide how much of a house you want to buy or how much of a payment you want to make maximum per month. So let's cover the second rule, which is the 30, 30, and 3 rule. Of course, I'm saying it's a rule, but it's just a guideline that was implemented ways back to keep you in check of your payments and your purchasing power. Taking a look at the 30, 33, let's look at the first 30. The first 30 implies that that 30% of your salary, monthly salary, or your combined salary has to go towards all your housing mortgage payments, which includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, what we call the PITI. So your total PITI should not exceed 30%. That's the first 30. Of course, the higher your payment, the higher the mortgage payment, the higher your payment, the lower the house you can buy, and the lower the mortgage payments and the lower the home price, the more house you can afford. So you want to keep it in check. So one thing you have to look at is you want to keep your house payments at 30% or below if you can. Of course, if you cannot, you might have noticed that a lot of people are moving out of California. I'm in California, and the net migration in California is negative. Actually, almost 5% of the people are moving out than they're moving in. And why is that? A lot of the metro cities, New York, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, a lot of the buyers are moving out of that area because the prices are so high. They're moving into areas where home prices are low. If we look at this chart, you may want to consider moving to some other cities if you can. If you cannot make or qualify for these guidelines, or if your lender does not qualify you, or if it qualifies you for a lesser price. So if you look at Green Bay, Wisconsin, the median household income there is $70,000 and the median home price is $245,000. And the groceries over there compared to national groceries is 15% less. So you get lower house payment, lower grocery bills, and I'm sure the other bills are also less. So a lot of people may think about moving there, or you may consider moving there if you can. So I'm not saying you have to move over there, but you have options. If you can't afford Los Angeles or San Francisco or wherever you're living, Austin, and if you have to move, if you have to buy a house, and if you're able to move, a lot of people are doing that. They are moving to rural areas, suburban areas, so they can have a better lifestyle and not live and work just to pay the mortgage payments. Comparatively, here's a list of the most expensive areas to live in. So if you're living in these kind of areas, you may consider moving to the suburbs or rural areas, maybe 45 minutes away or an hour away. If you look at San Diego, the median home price is $919,000 and the average annual salary is $67,200. That's not household income, that's individual salary. Los Angeles, the median home price is $836,000 and the average annual salary is $63,000. But this gives you a guideline. You can look at the chart for other cities. These are the most expensive cities to live in. The second rule of the 30-33 rule is that you should have 30% of your home purchase price in cash. So when you buy a house, obviously there's a down payment, and 20% is a pretty standard down payment. So what they recommend is that if you buy a house, you need to have 30%, 20% towards your down payment, and the other 10% you want for your emergency fund, your closing costs, your moving costs, and other living expenses you want to have as an emergency. In case you have a medical emergency or somebody loses a job in your family, then you have some money you can pay for 2 or 3 or 4 months, what we call emergency money. So the rule of thumb is have 30% cash in hand when you want to purchase. Let's take an example. If you purchase a home for $430,000, 20% of $430,000 is $86,000, and 10% for savings would be $43,000. In other words, you need to have $129,000 in hand to purchase a home for $430,000. And I understand that's a lot of money, but a lot of the buyers today can also borrow money or have some money gifted from their parents or sisters or brothers or whatever and come to that price. But this is just a guideline. It gives you an idea. The other advantage of putting 20% down is that when you purchase a home, you will not have what we call the PMI, what is the private mortgage insurance. Anytime you purchase a home less than 20% down, the lender is required to buy this insurance. And that insurance can run anywhere from $100 a month to $200 a month to up to $400 a month. If you can put 20% down, it saves you PMI and it saves you your mortgage payment from the get-go, because the more down payment you put, the less mortgage amount that you have to pay on. That'll reduce your mortgage payment on a monthly basis. Even if it's $50 or $35, it can go a long way for you to live a little bit comfortably and not stretch to pay your house payments or your rental payments. The third rule of the 30-33 is that when you purchase a home, they want you to purchase no more than 3 times your salary. So if you're making $100,000 a year, then you want to purchase something for $300,000. That's just a guideline. And I know in today's market, that's just not possible at all. I mean, what do you get for $450,000? Not a whole lot. If you look at you making so much money, $150,000 is a lot of money that you make. In fact, this guideline is impossible to follow. As I mentioned to you earlier, I live in Orange County, Anaheim Hills. The median home price in Anaheim Hills, where I'm from, is $1,087,000. In other words, if I go by the rule of 3, then I have to make $362,500 just to buy that house. Now, how many people make over $250,000 a year? Not a lot of people. So for somebody to buy a house in Anaheim Hills and they have to make $362,000, they have to be a CEO of Google or Apple or a chief executive of a media company, etc. So it narrows down to very few people. Yet a lot of homes are selling in Anaheim Hills and other places, and there's a shortage of homes even at that price range. So something is giving up over here. And basically what they do is they either put more down payment or combine their down payments, combine their income, and that's how they purchase. Because you have to find a way to go around purchasing these homes. You have to purchase and follow the guidelines as much as you can. Let us look at another example. Let's say you're living in Phoenix and you want to buy a house for $430,000, which is the median home price in USA today. So in Phoenix, you can get a real nice house for $430,000. So to purchase a $430,000 house, you need to make approximately $113,000 based on the times 3 rule. So you have to make $113,000 based on this guideline to buy a house for $430,000 in Phoenix. But here is the dilemma. The dilemma is the median household income in Phoenix as of last year is only $72,000, and the median home price in Phoenix is $340,000. In other words, if you apply the rule, if the house is approximately $340,000 median home price in Phoenix, you have to be making around $113,000 to buy this $340,000 house. And yet the household income is only $72,000. So it puts you in a pickle or in a dilemma. You can't do that. So let's look at what you get in Phoenix area and other areas of the country for a $225,000 range. The reason I'm picking these homes to look at is because the median household income in USA is around $75,000. And if you take the 3 times rule, the house is around $220,000 to $230,000. So these are the kind of homes you will find in Phoenix or Texas. Let's look at these. In Sun City, Arizona, for $225,000, you will find a 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, about 1178 square feet. That's it, let alone $340,000 house. If we look at Riverton, Illinois, you can get a house for $225,000, which is a 5 bedrooms, 4 bath, really big house, which is 2,607 square feet. So it's a pretty good house if you want to live in that area, if you want to move in that neighborhood there. And for $215,000, $999 in Princeton, Texas, you can get this new construction home, which is a 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, 1,295 square feet. I'm not sure where Princeton is or what kind of neighborhood it is, but it sounds like at a $75,000 household income average of us, you'll be able to buy a brand new home in Princeton, Texas, new construction. If you are fitting in the 30-30 rule or the 36-28 rule, you are killing it. You are living comfortably, you are being frugal, you're controlling your expenses, and you're trying to follow the guideline, and you have extra money for your living expenses after paying your PITI and credit cards and your auto. So that's good if you can do it. If you're not doing it, and if you're still thinking about buying it, you may want to start cutting your expenses and other debt so you can qualify for more home. The other thing is the biggest challenge buyers have today is coming up with a down payment. So I mentioned earlier, or the guidelines are that you have to buy a house having about 30% cash, 20% for the down payment, and 10% for reserves and savings and emergency. Yet, there are a lot of loans out there. There are government loans where you only need 3.5% down payment. So if you take 3.5% down payment plus you add 10% reserves, you only need 13.5% in reserves to purchase a home. Let's look at this chart. It shows you the average down payment of homes purchased. There's a myth out there that you need 20% down. Yes, it is great to put 20% down. You lower your mortgage payments, you save in your PMI. But if you look at this chart, according to this chart from the National Association of Realtors, all home buyers, the average down payment is only 14%. If you look at the home buyers age 23 to 31, age 32 to 41, 42 to 56 years old, I'm assuming these are first-time buyers, the average down payment is around 10%, 9%, not the 20%. And if you add the 10% or maybe 8% for savings, you can get by with 15 to 20% cash reserves. So you don't have to have 30%, although it's very highly recommended. Please watch this video, buy now or wait if you're thinking about buying. And buying a house is an American dream. I hope you start saving. If you don't have the saving, I hope you start cutting expenses. And if you need guidelines or resources, direct message me. I'll be glad to help. Please watch this video.